Hey folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another wrestling video. And this is on WrestleMania VII. Which I would say up to this point is one of my favorite WrestleManias that I've watched. Yeah, I've been watching these in order. You know what, if I had to admit it, out of the first 7 I've seen, actually by this time I saw WrestleMania 8 as well. And 9. WrestleMania 7 is my favorite so far of the first 9. People are like, why? There's a lot of matches I enjoyed on this. My favorite being Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage. Ever since I first saw it, it's always been one of the matches I've loved. It just told a great story. Had a great ending. And I thought on this card it had a lot of cool stuff on it. Each one I found, well, not each one, but most of them I found enjoyment out of in some way, shape, or form. The commentary mainly being Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. They worked well on commentary. The very first match is Hacksaw Jim Duggan because Bobby Heenan had to be on there as one of the managers during the match. But, you know, I looked at all these matches. The first one, the Rockers versus Haku and Barbarian. Very fun match. A lot of nice double teaming from the Rockers as well as from the bad guys. It was quickness versus power. One does a drop kick, one rocker does a drop kick on one does a crossbody on the other. It went at a good pace, had quite a few moves on it. The Rockers win, one of the few pay-per-views they got the win. And it was just entertaining to watch. You know, the Rockers were a great tag team. And Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, and had a lot of fun with it. You had some cameos of celebrities like Regis Philbin and Alice Trebek, among others. You didn't really need them in there, to be honest. Also, later on, you had Donald Trump, Chuck Norris, and Lou Ferrigno making an appearance, which that was pretty cool. Well, Chuck Norris and Lou fucked Donald Trump, but Chuck Norris and Lou Ferrigno, that was really cool. It's like, oh shit, Chuck Norris is there. I know there'd be another one. I forget which one that Chuck Norris would be like the enforcer or whatever. I forget which one that was. But, yeah, the Texas Tornado versus Dino Bravo. Not much to it. Pretty much the Tornado getting beaten up. He slaps on the claw on Dino Bravo. He does that discus punch, that spinning tornado punch, and wins. It was cool to see the Texas Tornado. You know, he did his 2 main moves, the claw and the discus punch. Wins on a guy that, you know, wrestler-wise I didn't care for. I know in real life it's sad that the guy actually, Dino Bravo, got murdered from the Mafia because he was into illegal, like, cigarette smuggling, something like that. So it's kind of weird watching this, but it was cool for, hey, Texas Tornado got a win. I wish there was more to the match. So, I mean, it's one of the weaker matches on the card, but, you know, it's still nice to see Texas Tornado in there. So it's something, not nothing. British Bulldog versus Warlord. I thought this was pretty decent. It was power versus power. British Bulldog breaking out of the full Nelson, doing a running power slam, and the Bulldog wins. Nice win for British Bulldog. You know, decent match for what it was. The Nasty Boys versus the Hart Foundation. Really enjoyed this one. Really fast-paced. A lot of good moves. Macaulay Culkin was in the audience. Some fun stuff on the commentary, where Nasty Boys, their manager is Jimmy Hart, and Gorilla Monsoon is, yeah, that little runt, Jimmy Hart. And Bobby Heenan's like, oh, I thought you were talking about Macaulay. So the commentary worked well. Again, this is very fast-paced. Bret Hart gave a good showing. He gave the Hart Foundation a finishing move, but the reason he lost was Jim Neidhart got hit by a megaphone, and Jimmy's holding Bret's feet so that Jim gets pinned, and the Nasty Boys become the new champions. Of course, this was done because the Hart Foundation was going to break up, and then Bret would be pushed into being a single wrestler. And it made sense. You know, Hart Foundation looked strong. They were ready to win. They got cheated out of it. That's the only reason they won. And the lesser guy, Jim Neidhart, is the guy who got pinned, not the guy who's going to go further, a.k.a. Bret Hart. So it worked out, you know, and it was a very fun, fast-paced match. It's like Nasty Boys, who were much more brawlers, versus Hart Foundation, which at least Bret was much more technical. Then you had a very interesting gimmick match. It was a blindfold match between Jake the Snake Roberts and Rick Martel. They showed the build-up where Martel had his spray, I think it's called Elegance, and sprayed it in Jake's eyes. And then one of his eyes was fucked up for a long time. And so now for revenge, it's a match with blindfold. The only thing that sucks is, well, there's two things. One, you see Jake put his hand in to, get situated, but you can see his fingers through the cover, so it wasn't really a blindfold. Because it's like mesh, how I put it. If you have a mesh shirt and you put your hand on it, you can see bits of skin. And you could do that. And it's like, you should have just cut away. The TV cameras could just cut away at that point. Or edited that. Or for future stuff. But so that way you could tell it wasn't really blindfold. Also, because it's a blindfold match, there wasn't really a lot of moves. But it was a fun match. A, because I like Jake the Snake Roberts. B, he got to do his DDT on Rick Martel. And also, the crowd was really into it. The crowd was really into this WrestleMania. Like, this is one of the, aside from WrestleMania 3, this is the crowds that were really into it the most. And I know people say WrestleMania 3 is the best, but I got more out of the matches in this one. Maybe because it was a time period that I'm more familiar with, so I'm more familiar with these wrestlers. And like this one, the crowd was really into it. Like, Jake would point, like, is he over there? Is he over there? And when he pointed to where Rick Martel, the crowd was like, yeah! And so I had a lot of fun back and forth and sneaking. And I know a lot of people, they were probably bored with it, they didn't hate it, but I liked it. The crowd was really into it. And sort of that cat and mouse aspect. It was interesting. It was original. It was different. And I liked the finish. I liked the finale. So overall, I really liked it, the match. Undertaker versus Jimmy Snuka. Really interesting because it was Undertaker's first WrestleMania. So it was the first of his streak. Of course, at this time there wasn't a streak, but it was his first of his, undefeated streak. And pretty much just to show, Taker winning and, hits his moves like the flying clothesline, choking, the suplex, and beats Jimmy Snuka pretty quickly. So, I mean, it was just interesting to watch because, again, seeing the first of the undefeated streak. Then you get to my favorite match of the night. One of my favorite matches, period, Warrior versus Savage. It was a great story. It was a retirement match. Whoever loses would retire. It told a great story. Both wrestlers came out of this strong. Bobby Heenan at the beginning is like, hey, isn't that Elizabeth in the crowd? Nice build-up. At the beginning, this intimidation tactics. Warrior told his story well. Instead of running like normal, he's walking to the ring. He has I liked his code, and I thought he looked the best. Like, physical-wise, he looked the best in this. He has atomic drops, chokes, throwing Savage to Sherry, but then Savage gave him clotheslines. Then Warrior's going to slam him, but puts Savage down, gives him a slap. Big punches the Savage and kicks in the corner, but then Savage does double axe handles and body slam. But then, Warrior gives shoulder tackles, which throws Savage out of the ring. After Savage misses this axe handle from the top rope to the outside. Of course, Savage gives so many of his finishing move elbow drops, but then Warrior kicked out, but it was weakly, and Savage can't believe it. But then Warrior does his finishing move, and Savage kicks out, and then Warrior can't believe it. And so, because it wasn't rare that each one would kick out of their finishing move. Nowadays, they do that like 5 times in one match. Here, it told the story better. And just Warrior giving these massive shoulder tackles that really, like 3-4 times, and Savage just really falls right out of the damn ring. Warrior wins, so Savage has to retire. And then Sherry's kicked in Savage, and then Miss Elizabeth comes in and throws Sherry. And Macho looks at her and looks at the crowd, hugs. People in the crowd have tears in their eyes. Puts Elizabeth on his shoulder, and they hug. So it's like both win in certain aspects. It told a great story. The only thing I would say is I wish Warrior got some more offensive moves, like, you know, maybe some body slams, suplexes, things of that nature. Maybe a little bit more of the physical wise, but still damn good match. And I would say it's my favorite match with Warrior and Savage. It's my favorite Warrior match. It's my favorite Savage match. Um, Definitely one of my favorite WrestleMania matches. I love it. Love the story. My favorite on this. So maybe that's part of the reason why WrestleMania 7 is my favorite so far. But a lot of the stuff I liked so far, and even after. I mean, yeah, you have a useless nothing match. This guy, Ginochiro Tenryu and Koji Kitao beating Demolition. It was a nothing match, and honestly, the Japanese wrestlers didn't impress me much. They didn't really do much for me. Their moves weren't impressive. Honestly, they looked sloppy to me. I'm like, Demolition honestly should have won, even though they were a nothing team by this point. So that, I would say, is the weakest match. So honestly, of all the matches, yeah, Texas Tornado could have been a lot more, but that's one of the only ones I hated was this Demolition one. But then, yeah, Big Bossman versus Mr. Perfect, which I had a lot of fun with as well. Perfect gives the Bossman his towel, and the Bossman looks like he wipes his ass with it and throws it back in Perfect's face. They both spit at each other. Bossman's punching, throwing Perfect by the hair, and even, you know, shows his quickness. Slapping Perfect with his belt. But then Perfect does some maneuvers, gives Bossman this really cringeworthy neck breaker. Like, Bossman's on his knees. And Perfect, like, puts his neck back like this. Boom! Which, when you're on your knees, that's an easy way to really break someone's neck. And it just looked, ow. Looked like it really hurt. Bossman gets it so that shoves Mr. Perfect's nuts into the post. More punches. Haku and Barbarian come in. That's why Bossman wins from disqualification. But Mr. Perfect, who's the Intercontinental Championship at this point, still has the belt. Andre comes out, and Andre and Bossman both clean house over Haku, Perfect, and Barbarian. And Bossman shakes Andre and raise their hands together. So that was nice. Earthquake versus Valentine, really just to show Earthquake's dominance. Power slamming grade, elbows. Pretty much Valentine all he does is some elbow shots. But really it's Earthquake's show. Does a power slam. Valentine tries for a figure four, but Earthquake does that big elbow and does his Earthquake bomb, wins, beats Great Valentine. So at the end, a short match, but, you know, I like Earthquake. Nice to see him in there. Short enough that it, you know, doesn't go on too long. Legion of Doom versus Power and Glory. This is the second match I would say I didn't like because it was too short. Literally, they beat Power and Glory, which is like Hercules and another guy, in like a minute. Literally, they're doing this, and they beat Power and Glory in 1 minute. And I think in the next pay-per-view or two, they would face the Nasty Boys, beat them, and win the championship. But this could have been longer than a minute. It didn't have to be a minute long. It could have been a lot longer. I don't know why it was only a minute long. I guess just to show the dominance of Legion of Doom. Kind of like when Ultimate Warrior beat Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental Championship. So maybe that. Okay, but I would prefer a longer one. Virgil with Roddy Piper in his corner versus Ted DiBiase. This was fun because of Roddy Piper being there. I mean, Virgil, not much to his character, not much of a wrestler, but Roddy Piper was fun. He has crutches. Virgil's mainly doing punches and clotheslines. Ted DiBiase, definitely the better technical wrestler. But Roddy sort of makes Ted DiBiase lose by a countout. And it was fun for Roddy Piper being there. Mountie versus Tito, I would say this is the third match I didn't care for because really it's like a minute long. It's really just to build up the Mountie. Really is the Mountie getting beaten up, and then the Mountie gets his cow prod thing, his stun gun thing, hits Tito, and then wins. So really a nothing match. That one, the one with the Japanese guys in Demolition, and the LOD versus Power and Glory, that's only 1 minute. Those are only 3 matches I didn't care for. Which, considering a lot of the other stuff, that's actually pretty good. At least LOD versus Power and Glory was a minute, and Mountain versus Tito was like a minute, so they didn't last too long. And then Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter, I actually liked it. It wasn't just Hulk getting beaten up for 95% of the running time, and then Hulk doing 3 moves. It's like Hulk really taking to Slaughter, giving him punches and moves, and again, it's not just Hulk. Oh, I'm beating up for 50 minutes, or beating up for like 20 minutes. Oh, 3 moves and that's it. No, he's really beating up on Slaughter, which I appreciated. And plus, this was one of the only early times I saw Hulk Hogan bleed. So he's bleeding. I always remember that shot where Sergeant Slaughter has Hogan, and Hogan's blood coming down Hogan's face. I do wish that the finish, there's more to it. I wish it was more than just the 3 punches and the leg drop and then finish. So my only problem is the finish should have been like, right, he does 3 punches, but then he should do like, suplex. He should do body slam, and then do the leg drop, something like that. Because I know some people don't like this because they call it Gulfsploitation, because it's, oh, Hogan the American versus Sergeant Slaughter the traitor, and the Gulf War is happening. But if people are mad about that, okay. It didn't bother me because you just say that for movies as well. Is Rambo 2 a bad movie because one guy went back and killed Vietnam? In a way, it's entertainment, and I didn't take it that seriously that other people did. So that didn't bother me. I mean, you want to see worse job of that? Look at Michael Bay movies like the Transformer films. Especially 3 and 4. That I can understand. But this, not really. And again, the Hogan vs. Sergeant Slaughter, I would say it's one of the favorite ones for Hogan. So overall, I really enjoyed the card. I really enjoyed most of these matches. Has one of my all-time favorites, Warrior vs. Savage. It was just nice to see all these people in there. I mean, Shawn Michaels and the Rockers, Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation, Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, Big Boss Man, Mr. Perfect, Earthquake, Legion of Doom, even if it's a tiny bit, Roddy Piper. Just nice to see everyone in there. Really cool. Really cool. So, that's my thoughts on WrestleMania VII. And I repeat myself, but definitely one of my favorites. So, thanks. I would say my favorite so far. I would say my favorite WrestleMania so far. Maybe I'll put that, like, my favorite WrestleMania so far. I don't know, sometimes I like to do that just to really hit home my points. Because sometimes you have to do that. But anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.